and then I will be quiet.
What? No, we're supposed to.
Until I actually feel that I have to say something. Okay, Wilhelm, the floor is yours.
Okay. It's a good thing it wasn't the other way around. Okay. Hi, guys. Now I'm fully Pfizerized, so soon the travels will will start again. So what we are doing is we worked for 2 years almost to get this paper accepted, and the heavy work behind it, Ola, Axis, Miroslav, and I. Now, before we jump into this, and you don't need to focus on the very details here, one of the questions that we in this metrics theme we have received so many times is, yes, but can we have a tool that will show us that? How do we assess this and how we assess that? So over the years, we have developed quite a few such tools so that you go in and say, for instance, yeah, okay, how do I know that the KPI is good? This, by the way, was a request from quite a few years ago, but it was a request almost from every company. I don't know what Miroslav and I were saying back then, but apparently we scared them and they wanted to have a tool to assess their KPIs. So the time came finally to assess ourselves, or myself, as a team leader of a former leader of a metrics team. How do we know that the metrics team is good, is a high performing team? So if we take a step back first, what is a metrics team? And today this notion of metrics is, I would say, old. It's diminishing. It's being replaced by analytics team, statistics and analytics and so on teams, but they're all the same, more or less. So they're doing 4 things, basically. The one is they develop information products. They collect data, they process that information, and then they present it exactly as the stakeholders or measurement users want to, or they do analysis, data mining and so on, and present predictions or future possibilities, customer possibilities, and other things, of course. And you have the maintenance, that's the boring part of the metrics team, so I will skip that. This is a very fun, the support, because the skills of the metrics team is quite extensive. By the end of the day, these guys, they know the products, they know the processes, they have a vast network inside, outside their company, and they are able to ask questions such as, what should I measure? How should I measure this? Can you help me set up a dashboard? What should I focus? Those are the questions that still are relevant for many companies. And together with this, of course, you have seen in many presentations today, machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence. And then we have the research, which has to be there if you're going to say that you are a solid metrics analytics team. So just to give you a very short background of the organizational, the organization within metrics team operates. You have a measurement program here that consists of these 5 elements: the database, information products, measurement systems, infrastructure, and you have here your measurement organization. A lot of inputs and very important outputs. And if you look here to the right, you will see roles within the team and outside of the team. Many of you recognize by today the stakeholders, since we have been talking, not only Miroslav and I, but many more, about stakeholders for many years now. So as it is today, yeah, we can say that almost every software company all over the world uses data. Big data, small data. One of the things that characterize these organizations is, of course, if you just collect them or if you handle them according to measurement programs paradigm. So where are you on this scale? Now, what we want to know is if you have a metrics team, how well is that performing? So we did a study at 4 different software center companies, and we developed such a model that very easily can say you are here.
Wilhelm, can I say a few words about this immature and mature organizations? Because I think that's a very, very interesting concept. So when we started studying this maturity of the teams and organizations, we realized that there is a lot of companies that are collecting the data because this is so cool about being data driven. But then there are 0 decisions virtually that are actually taken based on the data. Even if you have the data in front of you, the diagrams in front of you, there is still a lot of people saying, yeah, but I don't really feel this is the way. Well, let's do another thing. So that's, I think, a problem. And that characterizes immature organizations in those terms that you are paying for something that is modern, but you're not really using that. And mature organizations, they're actually taking decisions based on metrics. So they take the diagram and start thinking, wow, this is an interesting data. Let's, if we're not sure what it shows, let's dig a bit deeper into that, see what's underneath, so to say, right? And to be able to do that in a good way, that's an art. And we try to find a method to actually quantify that in some way. So in the model that we have is, we actually have 2 parts. We have the one part which characterizes the team itself, because the team can only do as much. And then we also have the part that characterizes the organization, right? The people who are around the team. Do they trust the team? Do they use the results? How do they use the results? How do they trust the team? And so on and so on. You can continue, Vic. I'm sorry for disturbing. I thought that
that's
an observation that we made that was quite cool to see, right?
Absolutely. And the last thing you said, this is, I would say, the main contribution that we have done with this model is that people, managers, leaders, they always focus on the metrics team, how good or bad it is, and excluded themselves. And that's crazy. It's like complaining about your personal trainer. He doesn't train. I have to do all the work. I mean, it's the same. It's the same reasoning. So when we sat down, we looked at those areas here that you can see that we are going to go into detail, so don't worry. And if we look at these 5 here, there are classic, so to say, organizational areas that we've been talking and everybody knows about. I mean, the setup, the commitment, and so on and so forth. We also brought into this the maturity of the team. And though it says maturity, it includes, of course, the organization also. And so setup. We talk about the setup of the metrics team and the roles in the metrics team, but also the roles outside of the metrics team. So no one can just relax and say, yeah, they're doing a bad work, because we come to them and say, okay, are you using this? Exactly as Miroslav said. Have you taken the courses so you understand what's the difference between a measure and an indicator is? And so on. And then when we talk about commitment, the commitment refers to both parts, both to the commitment of the metrics team and the organization. I don't know how kilos of metrics I have produced over those 17 years I worked with metrics. Waste, most of them. Nobody was using them, and they asked for it. So don't. They asked for it, but still. Then you have the impact, and here we stretch this when we talked about Miroslav, Ola, and I, that the impact is not only on the organization, but outside. For instance, are your metrics, the work around these metrics, is it so good that other companies can use you as a role model? Is it so interesting that academia can come to your place and studying? How come you are so good in this? Longevity is, this is a classic one. Can you survive reorganizations? That's brutal, but that's how it is. And of course, we took this efficiency and ways of working. When it comes to maturity, we took the rocket model. We have a link to this. You can go and take a look. We didn't take the whole model as such. We took what we found to be relevant, most relevant for this, for our study. Now, we have metrics, of course. It's difficult not to have since we work with them and that's what we love here in life. So you can see the number of questions that we have on the metrics team when you assess it and the number of questions to the organization. So in total, you have 42 metrics team related questions and 30 that relate to the organization. Let's take just one here as an example. Or if someone wants to go to dive into a specific area, now you have the chance to say it. No? Okay. So when we talk about the setup of the metrics team, we have three different areas. The setup of the metrics team as such, and as you can see, you have 4 organizational questions and just 2 for the team. Because the setup of the metrics team, the analytics team, the machine learning developing algorithms team cannot by itself say I am formal. That has to come from the organization, the assignment, the resources and everything. They have to come from the organization. And when we look at the roles, we say which roles exist in the metrics team. You see that here, those roles, they're not always part 100%. They can be inside or outside or in between. And this is something we have seen the last years, the last 1 or 2 years for that matter. So without going into details, there are a lot of all the questions and the material will of course be distributed by the end of the day. Now, how do you use this? It's very simple. If you take this commitment, for instance, you can see here, you assess, so you gather a number of people, both from the metrics team and the organization, and you ask a question, and the answer can be either fully compliant, partially compliant, not needed, or missing. Here you can see the result, one of the results that we had in this study out of the 4 companies. The result is very simple. It's a radar diagram. And the beauty with the radar diagram is that it is simple and you can easily see where am I good, where am I bad. Now don't get me wrong, you do not have to be 100% all over the place. Okay, if you're sending a rocket to the moon, yes, of course. But if you are building, for instance, a tricycle, you don't need that. So when you get this, and let's say this is what you got, then the question is, what is it that you need to improve immediately? And then you go back to this and you see which questions you had. You can see here you had nothing. So which one was you think is most important? And then you address these 1 or 2 areas. And this is how you use it. And as you see here, it says fully compliant because we do not care about the partially. Because partially is so very easy. Yeah, okay, we're partially. Okay, so we don't need to care. Yeah, that's enough. No, only the fully. And then you have to say 44% is enough for us. We will never be more mature because we don't, for whatever reason, we don't need that.
And I think also if you go back, I think one of the strengths of this model is the fact that these points that the statements are quite easy to understand and quite easy to implement. You look at the standard and then you say, okay, you can identify new stakeholders. If you cannot identify new stakeholders, then of course that means that your team maybe not doesn't know the organization that well. So this wanted state is a very good mechanism for the companies to start discussing where they want to be, but also start discussing the cost of that, what it really means. Because sometimes it is so that, as you say, that you could be at 44%, and maybe you would like to be at 100%. You don't have the right tool chain, you don't have the right people, you don't have the right competence. Maybe the organization is not mature enough to take those kind of analysis or diagrams. So sometimes it's a cost question, and this visualization helps you to understand, where do you want to be, how much that's going to cost, and if that's a cost effective, so to say. So maybe for you, going from 44% to 50% is just enough, given the status where you are today.
Exactly. Very good. And let's skip this. So this is where we put the company. So we can see we have on the x-axis, we have the team maturity, and the y-axis, we have the organizational maturity. And it's simple math. You take the number of questions and you divide it by the total number of, the fully answered with the total number, and you get. But here, different companies, different organizations have different needs, so they don't need to be, doesn't mean that B is worst in class here. It depends on the needs they have. So you don't compare it with others unless that is the purpose of the assessment. But you take this and you see, okay, I'm A here, and I want to be here, say in 2 years' time or next month, whatever this is. And given this need that you have, then you set up the actions that you must execute in order to come there. And exactly as Miroslav said, then you can spice it up with things that you would like to have and see if it's possible.
Yeah, but I also think that, when you first visualize the results in this way, what really struck me is that the company A and B, they are not, there is some sort of correlation between the maturity of the organization and the maturity of the team. You cannot have team that's 100% mature, but the company that's 0% mature, because it's kind of symbiotic relationship. You can produce perfect metrics, but then if nobody uses them, then you will not survive reorganization, because they will just cut you off. So there is this symbiotic way of thinking about metrics. And vice versa, you cannot have a super mature organization that doesn't really measure anything.
Yeah.
So I think that was a very interesting way of visualizing when you did that first time.
Yes, very good comment. Maybe you would like to take this?
Yeah, so recently I think what we were discussing quite a lot is that we will try to use this on other type of teams. Because when we were doing research for this particular model, what we actually found is that all models for assessing team maturity in general, they were very much related to soft skills of the team, not so much into what the team is actually producing. And I think that there's a big impact or difference if you're producing, safety critical software for a car, or if it's a dashboard, or if it's a service for a customer, or if you are a DevOps kind of team. The goal is different, so the team has to be different, and the maturity has to be different as well. So we want to study a bit more what other teams would, how would this model look like, for example, for a data science team, which is more towards using machine learning or statistics rather than just producing diagram. So how to revise that, and even study the teams that are really focusing on dashboards. And we've seen those at several companies now, that they wouldn't call themselves a metric team, even though we would call them a metric team.
Yeah.
They wouldn't call themselves that. They say that they produce dashboard, but what they really do is, the dashboard without metrics is nothing, right? So they produce in a lot of metrics there. So then we would really like to study them a bit more in the next iterations. Anyway, that's all from us, right, Wilhelm? That was the last slide.
Yes, I would like to stop the recording so we can start talking, because the discussion is the most interesting to me.